The red sun of Taeyang 7 was setting when Dae-hyun saw the blood trail. He stopped his transport vehicle and stared at the dark liquid splattered across the rocks. It wasn't red like human blood. This blood was deep purple, almost black, and it gleamed strangely in the fading light. Dae-hyun was a medic. He worked at the mining colony, taking care of injured workers and studying the planet's strange animals. He was 28 years old and had spent 3 years on this harsh world. Most people here hated the local creatures. They were dangerous and unpredictable, but Dae-hyun found them fascinating. He believed every living thing deserved respect, even the ones with claws and fangs. He should have driven away. The colony rules were clear. Never investigate unknown situations alone. But Dae-hyun couldn't ignore the blood trail. Something was hurt and suffering. He grabbed his medical kit and followed the trail down into a rocky ravine. The creature he found made his heart stop. It was massive, easily 3 meters long, with a body built like a predator from nightmares. 6 eyes were set into a broad skull and midnight blue scales covered its entire body. 4 powerful legs ended in claws that could tear through steel. A long tail lay motionless on the ground. The creature's mouth was slightly open, showing rows of sharp teeth. Dae-hyun recognized it immediately. Every human in the galaxy knew about the Valrathi. They were the most feared hunters in known space. Their empire controlled dozens of star systems, and they were known for their strength and ruthlessness. Valrathi killed humans. That was what everyone said. That was what the safety briefings taught. This Valrathi was dying. Deep wounds covered her body. Burns from plasma weapons had melted through scales in several places. One of her legs was bent at a wrong angle. Her breathing was shallow and rapid. As Dae-hyun watched, one of her 6 eyes opened slightly and focused on him. He waited for her to attack. He waited for those claws to reach for him or those jaws to snap closed on his body. But nothing happened. The eye just stared at him, and Dae-hyun saw something he didn't expect to see in an alien predator. Pain. Fear. Desperation. His hands moved before his brain could stop them. Dae-hyun opened his medical kit and pulled out scanning equipment. The readings made him wince. The Valrathi had lost too much blood. Her organs were failing. She had maybe an hour left to live. Dae-hyun worked quickly. He cleaned the wounds with antiseptic foam, even though he wasn't sure it would work on alien biology. He used a portable laser to seal the worst of the plasma burns. The smell of burnt flesh filled the air, but he forced himself to focus. He injected broad-spectrum coagulants designed for emergency use on unknown species. It was experimental medicine, barely tested, but it was all he had. The broken leg was harder. He couldn't set it properly without proper equipment, but he could stabilize it. He used support braces from his kit and worked as gently as possible. Every time he touched the leg, the creature's muscles tensed, but she didn't strike at him. Hours passed. The red sun disappeared completely, and Taeyang 7's 3 moons rose into the sky. Dae-hyun used his transport's lights to see. His hands were steady, but his mind was racing. What was he doing? This creature could kill him in seconds once she recovered. The Valrathi were humanity's enemies. Not official enemies, maybe, but definitely not friends. There was a treaty, yes, but it was a cold peace built on mutual fear. And yet he couldn't stop. The doctor in him wouldn't allow it. Finally, he finished. The wounds were sealed. The bleeding had stopped. He had given her fluids and nutrients through an injection port he'd carefully inserted between her scales. Whether she would survive or not was now up to her own biology. Dae-hyun sat back against a rock, exhausted. His uniform was covered in purple blood. His hands were shaking now that the work was done. He looked at the Valrathi and wondered if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. The creature's eyes were all closed now. Her breathing had steadied slightly. Maybe that was a good sign. Maybe it meant nothing. Dae-hyun knew he should leave. He should return to the colony and report this. But something made him stay a little longer. He watched the rise and fall of her chest. He counted her breaths. He checked the scanner readings one more time. Then all 6 of her eyes snapped open at once. Dae-hyun jerked backward, his hand reaching for the emergency beacon on his belt. The Valrathi's head turned toward him slowly. Those 6 eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, reflecting the moonlight. He expected her to roar, to attack, to end him. Instead, something impossible happened. A voice entered his mind. Not through his ears, but directly into his thoughts. It wasn't words exactly. It was more like feelings and meanings that his brain automatically translated into language. The voice was deep and ancient, carrying a weight that made his chest feel tight. "You saved me," the voice said.
"Why?" Daehyun's mouth was dry.
"You were dying," he managed to say out loud. "I'm a doctor." The 6 eyes studied him for a long moment. Then the voice came again, quieter this time, almost sad. "They will hunt you now. My scent marks you. The bond cannot be undone." "What? What does that mean?" Daehyun asked, but the Valrathi's eyes were already closing again. Her head lowered back to the ground. Within seconds, she was unconscious once more, her breathing deep and steady. Daehyun sat in the darkness for another hour, but she didn't wake again. Finally, as the largest moon reached its peak in the sky, he gathered his equipment and climbed out of the ravine. He drove back to the colony in silence, his mind full of questions. What had she meant about her scent marking him? What bond? And who would hunt him? He told himself it was probably delirium from the injuries. Dying creatures often said strange things. He'd seen it before with injured animals. There was no reason to think this was different. But deep down, in a place he didn't want to examine too closely, Daehyun knew something had changed. He could feel it somehow, like a weight settling onto his shoulders or a thread connecting him to something far away. He parked his transport in the colony garage and walked to his quarters. Other workers passed him in the corridors, but none of them seemed to notice anything different. Everything looked normal. Daehyun showered, washing away the purple blood and the smell of burnt flesh. He fell into bed, exhausted. As sleep took him, he dreamed of 6 glowing eyes and a voice that echoed in his mind. "They will hunt you now." He had no idea how true those words would become. 3 days passed, and Daehyun knew something was wrong with him. It started with his sense of smell. Walking through the colony cafeteria, he could suddenly identify every ingredient in every dish. He knew that Bo-Ra had spilled coffee on her uniform that morning. He knew that the air filtration system in Sector 3 needed maintenance. He could smell things that should have been impossible to detect. Then came the night vision. Daehyun had always needed lights to see in the dark, like every other human. But now, when he woke in the middle of the night, his room wasn't completely black anymore. He could make out shapes and shadows with strange clarity. It wasn't perfect vision, but it was far better than it should have been. The strangest part was how other people reacted to him. When he walked down corridors, people moved aside without seeming to realize they were doing it. In meetings, people watched him differently. Not with fear exactly, but with a kind of unconscious wariness. Even the colony dogs, usually friendly with everyone, kept their distance. Something was very wrong. Jiwoo noticed it too. She was Daehyun's closest friend in the colony, a sensor technician who analyzed everything from mineral deposits to atmospheric conditions. She cornered him in the research lab on the 3rd day. "Sit down," she said, pointing at a chair. Her face was serious. "I need to run some scans on you." "Why?" Daehyun asked, but he sat down anyway. "Because you smell wrong," Jiwoo said bluntly. She was never one to sugarcoat things. "I mean, you smell clean, but there's something else. Something I can't quite identify. It's been bothering me for days." She ran a full bioscan on him. The equipment hummed and beeped, analyzing his blood, his skin, his DNA. When the results appeared on her screen, Jiwoo's face went pale. "This is impossible," she whispered. "What is?" Daehyun stood up and looked at the screen, but the medical data meant nothing to him. Jiwoo pointed at a series of molecular diagrams. "You have Valrathi pheromone markers bonded to your DNA. Not on your skin or in your clothes, but actually integrated into your cellular structure. It's like your body is producing them naturally now." Daehyun felt cold. "That's impossible. I haven't been near any Valrathi except—" He stopped. "Except what?" Jiwoo demanded. He told her everything. The blood trail, the dying Valrathi in the ravine, the medical treatment he'd provided, and the strange voice in his mind. Jiwoo listened without interrupting, her expression growing more concerned with every sentence. "She said her scent would mark you," Jiwoo said when he finished. Apparently, she wasn't kidding. "Do you have any idea what this means?" "No," Daehyun admitted. "Neither do I, but we need to find out. These pheromone markers aren't random. They follow a specific pattern. It's like a signature or a code. Other Valrathi would be able to read it." That night, Daehyun got his answer. He was walking back to his quarters when he felt something watching him. He stopped and turned toward the colony perimeter, where the buildings ended and the wilderness began. The security lights created a wall of brightness, but beyond them was darkness. 6 eyes glowed in that darkness. Daehyun's hand went to his emergency beacon, but he didn't activate it. He recognized those eyes. Instead, he walked toward the perimeter fence. Security protocol said civilians weren't allowed outside after dark, but the gate had a manual override for emergencies. Daehyun used it. He walked into the darkness. The Valrathi emerged from the shadows slowly. She looked completely different from the dying creature he'd found 3 days ago. Her wounds were healed, though new scars marked her scales. She stood tall and powerful, every inch the apex predator her species was known to be. But she didn't attack. "You came," she said. The voice entered his mind again, that same strange communication that bypassed his ears entirely. "You're healed," Daehyun said. "I'm glad. My name is Kathera," the Valrathi said. "I am a huntmaster of my people. Or I was before I became a traitor." "What do you mean?" Kathera lowered herself to the ground, settling into a resting position that somehow made her seem less threatening. "I discovered something my people did not want me to know. For many cycles, Valrathi hunters have been entering your space illegally. They hunt humans for sport, violating the peace treaty. When I tried to report this to my superiors, they declared me an enemy of the Empire." Daehyun felt sick. "How many humans?" "Dozens, maybe hundreds over the years. You're missing colonists on frontier worlds. You're explorers who vanished without trace. Many of them were killed by my people." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you saved me when you had every reason to let me die," Kathera said. Her 6 eyes focused on him intently. "Because you showed me something I had forgotten existed. Mercy, compassion for an enemy. These are not things Valrathi value anymore. We have become too focused on strength and dominance. But you reminded me of the old ways before the Empire corrupted us." "You said your scent marked me," Daehyun said. "What does that mean?" Kathera was quiet for a moment. "Among my people there is a bond that cannot be broken. It is used only for mates and for offspring. It is a scent marker that changes the very structure of your biology. I marked you because I was dying and not fully conscious. My body reacted instinctively to your kindness. It recognized you as pack, as family. Now every Valrathi who comes near you will know you are under my protection." "That sounds good," Daehyun said. "It is not good," Kathera said, and her mental voice was heavy with regret. "Because the hunters who tried to kill me are tracking my scent. They will follow it here, and when they arrive, they will find you marked with my signature. They will know you helped me. They will try to kill you to get to me." Daehyun took a deep breath. "When will they come?" "Soon, perhaps days. Perhaps hours. I should leave this world and lead them away from your colony. There is a way to break the scent bond, but it is painful and dangerous. You might not survive it." "No," Daehyun said immediately. Kathera's eyes widened slightly. "You refuse? But I have brought danger to your people. You're injured and alone. Those hunters want to kill you because you tried to do the right thing. I'm not going to abandon you now." Daehyun surprised himself with his certainty. "Besides, if what you say is true about illegal hunts, then my people need to know. We need proof. You would risk your life for this?" "Yes." Kathera stared at him for a long time. Finally, she lowered her head in what might have been a gesture of respect. "You are very strange for prey species." "We're not prey," Daehyun said quietly. "And you're about to learn why." He turned and walked back toward the colony, and after a moment, Kathera followed him through the darkness. Behind them, in the distant sky, a ship entered orbit around Taeyang 7. The hunters had arrived. The Valrathi hunters announced their arrival with perfect courtesy and absolute menace. Governor Myung-sik stood in the colony command center, reading the message that had appeared on all screens simultaneously. His face showed confusion and poorly hidden nervousness. Daehyun and Jiwoo stood behind him, watching over his shoulder. "They say they're here on an authorized hunt for dangerous wildlife," Myung-sik said. "They request permission to land and conduct operations in our territory." "Don't let them land," Daehyun said immediately. The governor turned to him with irritation. "These are Valrathi, Daehyun. We have a treaty with them. Refusing their request could cause a diplomatic incident. The corporation would not be pleased." "The corporation won't be pleased when colonists start disappearing either," Jiwoo said sharply. "That's enough," Myung-sik snapped. "I'm granting them permission to land. We'll extend full cooperation. Maybe this will help improve trade relations." Daehyun wanted to argue more, but he knew it was useless. Myung-sik cared more about his career than about safety. Instead, Daehyun left the command center and went looking for Hye-jin. He found her in the security office, checking weapons inventory. Hyejin was the colony's head of security, a former military officer who had come to Taeyang 7 looking for a quieter life. She looked up when Daehyun entered. "You heard?" he asked. "I heard," she said grimly. "I also heard you've been keeping secrets. Jiwoo told me about your new friend." Daehyun wasn't surprised. Jiwoo trusted Hyejin completely. "Are you going to report it?" "I should," Hyejin said. "But I won't. Not yet anyway. Jiwoo showed me the data she pulled from Valrathi communication channels. If it's real, we have a bigger problem than one unauthorized alien in our territory." "It's real," Daehyun said. "And those hunters aren't here for wildlife." "I know," Hyejin said. She pulled up a schematic of the colony on her screen. "So we need to prepare." "Where is she now?" "Hidden in the abandoned mining tunnels under Sector 7. She said she'd stay there until we figured out what to do." "Smart. Those tunnels aren't on any current maps." Hyejin tapped her screen thoughtfully. "But if these hunters are as good as you say, they'll find her eventually. We need a plan." The Valrathi ship landed 2 hours later. 5 hunters emerged from it. Each one was larger and more heavily muscled than Kethera. They wore armor that seemed to be made from the scales of their own species, somehow removed and reforged into protection. Their claws were tipped with metal. Their eyes glowed with an eerie light. The leader introduced himself as Thorak. He spoke perfect human language, his words precise and formal. Governor Myungsik welcomed them enthusiastically, offering refreshments and quarters. Thorak accepted with cold politeness. Daehyun watched the whole thing from a distance. When Thorak's eyes swept across the crowd of curious colonists, they passed over Daehyun and then snapped back. For just a moment, the Valrathi's eyes narrowed. Then he looked away and continued his conversation with the governor. "He knows," Daehyun thought. "He can smell Kethara's mark on me." That night, Jiwoo worked late in her lab, analyzing the communication data she'd intercepted. She had access to equipment the colony used for geological surveys, and she'd modified it to pick up Valrathi signal patterns. What she found made her blood run cold. The hunters were sending regular reports back to their ship. The messages were encrypted, but Jiwoo was good at her job. She broke the encryption and read the contents. The hunters weren't looking for wildlife. They were looking for Kethara, and they had orders to eliminate anyone who had helped her. The messages talked about the marked human and debated the best way to capture him for interrogation. Jiwoo immediately tried to contact Daehyun, but he didn't answer his communicator. She grabbed her datapad and ran toward his quarters. She was halfway there when the emergency alarm started screaming. The attack on the research station was brutal and efficient. 2 of the hunters had entered through an emergency airlock. Bypassing all security, they moved through the corridors like liquid shadows, their scales shifting colors to match their surroundings. They reached the lab where Jiwoo had been working minutes before and destroyed everything inside, searching for data. Hyejin responded immediately. She activated the colony's defense protocols and led a security team toward the research station. When they arrived, they found one of the hunters standing in the middle of a ruined lab, casually crushing equipment under his claws. "Stop!" Hyejin shouted, raising her weapon. The Valrathi turned to look at her. His 6 eyes assessed her the way a butcher might assess meat. Then he moved. Hyejin had been a soldier. She'd trained for combat situations and survived 2 tours in hostile territory, but she had never faced anything like a Valrathi hunter in close quarters. The creature crossed the 20-meter distance in less than 2 seconds. Her weapon discharged once, the plasma bolt burning across the hunter's shoulder, but it barely slowed him. Claws reached for her throat. Then Kethara hit the hunter from the side like a missile. The 2 Valrathi crashed into the wall hard enough to crack the reinforced metal. They rolled across the floor, claws and teeth flashing. The second hunter charged to help his packmate, but suddenly Daehyun was there holding a mining laser. "Don't," Daehyun said quietly. The hunter laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. "You cannot harm me, little prey." "Maybe not," Daehyun admitted. "But I can bring down this entire corridor. See those support beams above you? This laser cuts through rock for mining. Want to see what it does to metal?" The hunter paused, evaluating. Then he heard his packmate roar in pain. Kethera had him pinned, her jaws closed around his throat. She looked up at the second hunter, and her mental voice rang out loud enough that even the humans could sense it. "Leave. Tell Thorak that Kethara claims this territory. Tell him any who enter will face me." The second hunter hesitated only a moment before retreating. He dragged his injured packmate with him. and they disappeared into the darkness of the colony's outer corridors. Hee-Jin slowly lowered her weapon. Her hands were shaking. She looked at Cathara with new understanding and a healthy amount of fear. "You saved my life. I saved my own life," Cathara said. "You were simply in the way." But Daehyun saw the lie in her eyes. Cathara had come to protect them. The bond went both ways now. Jiwoo stumbled into the destroyed lab, out of breath from running. She held up her datapad. "I broke their encryption," she gasped. "I have proof. Proof of everything. The illegal hunts, the violations, all of it." "Then we need to get that information off this planet," Hee-Jin said. "If Earth authorities see this, they can force a real investigation." "The hunters have blockaded all communications," Jiwoo said. "Nothing gets off-world without going through their ship first." "Then we go to orbit ourselves," Daehyun said. "The ore transport leaves in 2 days. If we can reach it and transmit from there, we might break through the blockade." "That ship is 10 kilometers from here," Hee-Jin said. "Through open territory. Perfect hunting ground." Cathara stood up, her scales still marked with purple blood from the fight. "Then we hunt the hunters. I will teach you how." Hee-Jin looked at Daehyun. "This is insane." "I know," Daehyun said. "But it's our only chance." Outside, Thorak received the report from his injured hunters. His 6 eyes glowed with cold anger. The hunt was about to begin. Cathara taught them how to think like prey that refuses to die. In the abandoned mining tunnels under the colony, a strange classroom formed. Daehyun, Jiwoo, Hee-Jin, and 6 other volunteers sat in a circle around the Valrathi huntmaster. Cathara had killed humans before, she admitted freely, but now she was trying to keep them alive. "Valrathi hunt by scent first, then by sight, then by sound," Cathara explained. Her mental voice reached all of them clearly in the confined space. "We track heat signatures and follow movement patterns. We are patient. We think like predators, which means we think in certain predictable ways." "How do we use that against you?" Hee-Jin asked. "By not behaving like prey," Cathara said. "Prey runs in straight lines. Prey panics. Prey makes noise. You must do none of these things. You must confuse our senses and violate our expectations." Over the next day they prepared. Bora and Tai Yang, the colony's mining engineers, worked on modifying equipment. They took the drones used for geological surveys and rigged them to emit false heat signatures. They programmed random movement patterns that would look like humans running through the terrain. The drones would be decoys, drawing the hunters away from the real targets. Sung-ho, a man who had been a hunter back on Earth before coming to Taiyang 7, taught the others about masking scents. He found local plants that produced strong odors and showed them how to make compounds that would confuse the Valrathi sense of smell. It wouldn't make them invisible to the hunters, but it might buy them precious seconds. Jiwoo worked on the technical side. She studied the Valrathi communication patterns and figured out how to create false signals. If they could make the hunters think they were in multiple places at once, it would split their forces. Daehyun watched it all come together and felt something strange growing inside him. Pride, maybe, or hope. These were miners and technicians and scientists, not soldiers. But they were adapting. They were learning. They were preparing to face the most dangerous predators in the galaxy, with nothing but their wits and tools built for digging holes in rock. That was humanity's gift, he realized. Not strength or speed or claws. Adaptability, creativity. The refusal to accept that any problem was unsolvable. Cathara saw it too. She watched the humans work with her 6 eyes, tracking every movement. Once she spoke to Daehyun privately. "I have hunted your kind before," she said. "I thought I understood humans. But I was wrong. You are not prey. You are survivors. There is a difference." "What difference?" Daehyun asked. Prey accepts the role the predator gives them. Survivors reject that role entirely. They find ways to win that predators never consider. Cathara's mental voice carried something that might have been respect. Thorak does not understand this yet. He still sees you as weak creatures to be eliminated. That blindness will cost him. The plan was simple in concept but difficult in execution. They would split into 3 teams. The first team would move north, using the drones to create a trail of false heat signatures. The second team would move south, setting up noise generators and leaving scent markers to draw attention. Both teams would create chaos and confusion. The third team, consisting of Daehyun, Jiwoo, Hee-Jin, and Cathara, would move straight east toward the spaceport where the ore transport was being loaded. They would stay low, move carefully, and use every trick they'd learned to avoid detection. Once they reached the ship, Jiwoo would upload her data and transmit it to Earth before the Valrathi could stop them. It required perfect timing. It required luck. It required the hunters to make mistakes. They won't make mistakes, Hyejin said when they reviewed the plan. They're trained killers. Everyone makes mistakes, Daehyun said. We just need to create situations where their instincts work against them. The operation began at dawn. Team 1 moved out first, their drones spreading across the northern territory. The machines darted between rocks and through valleys, their heat signatures blazing like beacons. Within an hour, 2 Valrathi hunters had peeled away from the main group to investigate. Team 2 activated their equipment an hour later. Loud sounds erupted from dozens of speakers hidden in the southern caves. Recorded human voices, movement sounds, even fake weapons fire. It was crude, but it worked. 2 more hunters went to investigate. Thinking they'd found a group of hiding colonists, that left only Thorak and 1 other hunter near the colony center. Daehyun's team began their move toward the spaceport just before noon. They traveled in complete silence using hand signals to communicate. Kathara led them, her senses alert for any sign of the hunters. They moved through gullies and ravines, avoiding open ground. They used the cover of rock formations and scattered vegetation. For 2 hours, everything went perfectly. Then Jiwoo's equipment picked up movement ahead of them. She held up her hand and everyone froze. Through her scanner, she could see a single Valrathi moving perpendicular to their path. It was one of the hunters that had gone north, now returning. They waited, barely breathing, while the hunter passed less than 50 meters away. Kathara had taught them to control their fear responses, to slow their heartbeats and breathing. It helped. The hunter continued moving without stopping, but then the wind shifted. Kathara's eyes went wide. She turned to Daehyun and her mental voice was urgent. He caught your scent, run, now! They ran. Behind them they heard the hunter roar. It was a sound that turned blood to ice, a sound designed by evolution to paralyze prey. But Daehyun and his team didn't stop. They'd prepared for this. Hyejin triggered the first trap. A mining charge carefully placed detonated behind them. Rock and dust exploded upward, creating a wall of debris between them and the hunter. It wouldn't stop the Valrathi, but it would slow him down. They ran another 100 meters and triggered the second trap. This one was different. Sung-ho had placed containers of concentrated scent compounds along the path. When they broke, they released a mixture of smells so strong and complex that even human noses were overwhelmed. For a Valrathi, with their enhanced senses, it was like being blinded. The hunter roared again, this time in frustration. His ability to track by scent was temporarily useless, but he could still track by sound, and they were making plenty of noise running across rocky ground. Kathara stopped suddenly. Keep going, she told the others. I will hold him here. No, Daehyun said. We're not leaving you. You must, Kathara said. The data must reach your people. That is more important than one life. Then come with us, Jiwoo said. We can all make it. But they could already hear the hunter crashing through the dust cloud behind them. There was no time to argue. Kathara turned to face the approaching threat. I have lived as a hunter, she said. Let me die as a protector. Go. Hyejin grabbed Daehyun's arm and pulled him forward. They ran, leaving Kathara behind. Behind them, they heard the sounds of combat. Roars and crashes and the scrape of claws on stone. They ran for another hour, pushing their bodies past exhaustion. The spaceport appeared in the distance like salvation. The ore transport sat on its landing pad, engines already warming for departure. They'd made it. Then Thorak stepped out from behind a rock formation directly in front of them, his 6 eyes gleaming with cold satisfaction. He'd been waiting for them all along. The other hunter had just been a distraction. Clever prey, Thorak said, speaking aloud in perfect human language, but not clever enough. Daehyun, Jiwoo, and Hyejin stood frozen. They'd come so far. They'd been so close. Thorak advanced toward them slowly, savoring the moment. Where is the traitor Kathara? Fighting your hunter, Daehyun said, trying to buy time. No, Thorak said. She killed him 3 minutes ago. I felt his death through the pack bond. She is coming here now, I think. She will arrive just in time to watch you die. He was right. Kathara emerged from the rocks behind them, running at full speed. But she was too far away. Thorak was too close. The Master Hunter's claws extended, reaching for Daehyun's throat. This was the end. Then Daehyun did something that Thorak never expected. He smiled. Thorak hesitated. Prey didn't smile when they were about to die. In that moment of confusion, Daehyun pressed the button in his hand. The ground beneath Thorak exploded, not with fire or force, but with sound. Every speaker that Bora and Taiyang had planted in the area activated simultaneously. The noise was designed specifically for Valrathi hearing, hitting frequencies that would overwhelm their sensitive ears. It was painful even for the humans. For Thorak, it was agony. The hunter stumbled backward, all six eyes squeezing shut, his claws going to his head. Now, Hyjin shouted. She raised the mining laser she'd been hiding behind her back and fired. The beam caught Thorak across his chest, burning through scales and into flesh. He roared and tried to charge forward, but Cathara hit him from the side. The two Valrathi crashed together with terrible force. They rolled across the ground, a blur of scales and claws and teeth. Cathara was faster, but Thorak was stronger. He threw her off and rose to his feet, blood streaming from his wounds. You betray everything our people stand for. Thorak snarled at Cathara. You protect prey. You side with weaklings. I protect those with honor, Cathara shot back. Something you lost long ago. Thorak laughed, a cold sound without humor. Honor? The humans are vermin. They spread across the galaxy like disease. They are weak. They deserve to be hunted. You're wrong, Daehyun said. He stepped forward, even though every instinct told him to run. We're not weak. We're different. And you're too blind to see it. Brave words from prey, Thorak said. He started moving toward Daehyun again, slower this time, more careful. But you will die like all the others before you. No, Jiwoo said from behind him. He won't. She had reached the ore transport. Her fingers flew across the communication console. The data she'd gathered, all the proof of illegal Valrathi hunts, began uploading to the ship's powerful transmitter. Within seconds, it would broadcast to every human ship and station within range. Thorak realized what was happening. He turned away from Daehyun and charged toward Jiwoo. He was fast, impossibly fast. But Cathara was faster. She tackled him again, her jaws clamping onto his leg. Thorak kicked her away, but it cost him precious seconds. By the time he recovered, the transmission was already going out. The evidence streamed into space. Communication logs, hunt records, coordinates of attacks, even video recordings of Valrathi hunters killing unarmed human colonists. It was undeniable. It was damning. Thorak stopped moving. He stood perfectly still, his six eyes fixed on the transmission indicator. He knew what this meant. The conspiracy was exposed. The corrupt faction of the Valrathi Empire would fall. Everything they'd worked for was finished. You have destroyed us, he said quietly to Cathara. I have saved us, Cathara replied. The Empire was rotting from within. This will force change. Thorak looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at Daehyun. I underestimated your kind, he admitted. That was my mistake. He turned and began walking away. Stop. Hyjin called out. You can't just leave. But Thorak didn't stop. He walked past the spaceport, past the colony, and disappeared into the wilderness. None of them tried to follow him. They were too exhausted, too overwhelmed by what they'd accomplished. Jiwoo slid down the side of the transport, sitting on the ground. We did it, she said, almost unable to believe it. The message is out. Earth will see it. The Valrathi government will see it. Everyone will see it. What happens now? Daehyun asked. Now everything changes, Cathara said. She was right. Within hours, human naval ships began arriving in the system. Within days, Valrathi diplomatic vessels followed. The evidence Jiwoo had transmitted started a storm that swept through both governments. Emergency sessions were called. Treaties were renegotiated. The corrupt faction within the Valrathi Empire, the ones who had authorized the illegal hunts, were arrested and tried. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't immediate. But it was change. Governor Myung-sik tried to take credit for the whole thing until Hyjin released recordings that showed him welcoming the hunters and ignoring warnings. He was removed from his position. The mining corporation issued an apology and increased security at all frontier colonies. Daehyun became famous in a way. The man who saved an alien and changed the course of interspecies relations. He hated the attention. He just wanted to get back to his work. But things couldn't go back to the way they were. Cathara chose to stay on Taiyang 7. She became an official liaison between humans and Valrathi, helping both species understand each other. It was strange at first. Many colonists were afraid of her, but slowly they learned she wasn't a monster. She was just a person in her own way. The scent bond between her and Daehyun never faded. Months later it was still there, connecting them in ways that defied simple explanation. They weren't mates. They weren't really family. But they were bonded, and that meant something to both species. One evening, 6 months after everything had happened, Daehyun found Cathara sitting on a hillside outside the colony, watching the sunset. He sat down next to her. "Do you miss it?" he asked. "Your old life?" "Sometimes," Cathara admitted. "But that life was built on lies. This life here with you humans is built on something better." "What's that?" "Choice," Cathara said. "Back home I was what I was born to be. A hunter, a warrior. Nothing more. Here I can choose who I want to be. Every day I make that choice," Daehyun understood. He thought about the moment he'd found her dying in that ravine. He could have walked away, should have walked away, according to every rule and regulation, but he'd chosen to help. That choice had changed everything. "The new treaty is being signed next week," Cathara said. "Both sides are sending representatives. They want us to attend." "Us? You saved one dying alien and started a revolution," Cathara said, and her mental voice carried something that might have been amusement. "They think you're some kind of hero." "I'm not a hero," Daehyun said. "I'm just a medic who couldn't walk away from someone in pain." "That is exactly what makes humans dangerous," Cathara said. "Not weapons. Not technology. Your compassion, your refusal to accept that things must be the way they've always been. My people have been apex predators for millions of years. We thought we understood the galaxy. Then we met humans and everything we believed was challenged. Are we really that different from you?"
"Yes and no," Cathara said.
"We are both predators in our own ways. But Valrathi hunt to kill. Humans hunt to understand. You seek knowledge. You seek connection. You turn enemies into allies. That is your strength." In the distance, other colonists were visible, working on expanding the settlement. Bora and Taiyang were testing new mining equipment. Jiwoo was setting up a research station. Haijin was training new security personnel. Life continued, but it was different now. Better, maybe. Humans and Valrathi were really talking for the first time. Trade agreements were being negotiated on equal terms. Cultural exchange programs were starting. It would take time. There would be setbacks. Trust had to be built slowly. But it was happening. Daehyun looked at Cathara, this massive predator who had become his friend. "What do we do now?" "Now," Cathara said, "we teach both our peoples that the universe is better when we work together than when we hunt each other." "That's a big job." "Yes," Cathara agreed. "But I think humans are good at impossible jobs." Daehyun smiled. He thought about everything that had happened. The fear, the danger, the desperate race to expose the truth. He thought about how close they'd come to failure. But they'd succeeded because they'd worked together. Human creativity and Valrathi strength. Both species learning from each other. Maybe that was the real message. Not that humans were better than Valrathi, or that either species should dominate the other, but that both were stronger together. The red sun of Taeyang 7 dipped below the horizon. 3 moons rose into the darkening sky. Somewhere in the colony, someone started playing music. Human music with rhythms and melodies that Valrathi found strange but interesting. Cathara stood up. "Will you teach me about human music?" she asked. "I want to understand it." "If you teach me about Valrathi history," Daehyun said, standing beside her. "The real history, not the propaganda." "Deal," Cathara said. They walked back toward the colony together, a human and a Valrathi, bonded by choice rather than biology. Behind them, the stars began to appear in the sky. Somewhere out there, both their peoples were watching, both were learning, and the galaxy would never be quite the same.